Welcome to the Further North podcast, your weekly dose of the North Melbourne Footy Club. My name is Josh and this is a fan-run podcast doing match previews, reviews and everything North. Let's get it started.
Look at to come in and go bang! Nathan Thompson gets the fist pumping and goes Cops of it. We're heading to the finals.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Further North. Coming off a loss, another loss against the Bulldogs, but we're going to try and keep this energy high. I went down to the game at prime time at Marvel Stadium, and what a spectacle it was. A pretty decent crowd, about 30,000 in the house. And I tell you what, there's a lot of North fans there. I live out in the eastern suburbs, and, you know, getting the train for about 45 minutes into the city, there wasn't many Bulldogs fans getting on the train, but I tell you what, there was a lot of North fans. So, you know, like we already know, we are massive, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, guys. We're huge, and we know we are. Maybe not membership size, but it's not always the size that matters. I've employed that for most of my life, and it's got me to where I am today, podcasting in my spare room about the team that's 17th on the ladder. So, no, it's a fun time. That's a joke. We go down 84 to 105 by 21 points to the Bulldogs. And it's another respectable loss. They're really starting to pile up now, aren't they? We played all right. We were in the contest a lot of the time, but we still don't walk away with the points. But hey, hopefully one day George Wardle leads us to a grand final. That's what I'm banking on. Really quickly before we get into it, I just want to shout out to Bay 29 when we went down there on the weekend. Bay 29 is the place to be for North Melbourne home games, guys. The great guys over at North Melbourne, Closer to a Flag, organise all of that. And it's just an unreal atmosphere. There's so many kangas out there. Everyone else brought the energy too. Someone random in the Bay was starting the kangas. Everyone was just up and about, and we all sort of were getting around each other, and we actually had some guests come down. So massive shout out to Sonja and Jen for being great enough to come down and sit in the Bay with us for a little bit there. I'm sure Fox Footy and North will be all over that. There's a lot of cameras coming to the Bay when they did come down. But, I think that's one of the better things about this club, and the reason that we all support them and love them so much, like I sort of touched on before jokingly, but, we're not the biggest fan base and we're never going to be the biggest club, but it gives us an opportunity to have more of a closer connection with the club. Richmond or Collingwood or any of those teams, their president and their CEO aren't coming and sitting in a fan-made bay to support the club with us. So massive shout out to those legends. What more can I say? It was a great time. Great to meet them. They seemed like lovely people. And look, they were getting around the kangas as well. Admin 3 from Closer to a Flag was really up and about. He's the main voice in there. And, every time he stands up and pumps up the crowd, they're into it as well. So brilliant job. There's going to be lots of news on Bay 29 coming up for the rest of the year. As soon as we know, rounds and games that we're going to do that in, we'll advertise it on Further North here and also Closer to a Flag. So follow their page if you don't already, and bring the noise down there, guys. It's so much fun. It's actually making games so much more enjoyable to go to, and to meet a couple of people down there who listen to the podcast and follow Closer to a Flag was brilliant, guys. So a couple of people said that, Bay 29 is the reason that they come down and it makes the game for them, and that's awesome. And that is the way I feel about it too. So thank you for those boys for organising all of that. I love being a part of it. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Sonja. And we move forward. One other piece of North Melbourne news that's only a few hours old is that Charlie Comben has re-signed, I think it was till 2025. That's a good contract. I like that. Not locking him in long term because we do know he's very injury prone. But he's got a couple more years here to be able to build and see what he's really capable of. We all love Chom. We love him so much, and we were all praying for that breakout game. He obviously didn't quite get there because of his ankle injury. And in my opinion, CCJ has maybe offered a little bit more, but I think CCJ is ready for AFL quicker than Comben is. But Comben, his attack on the ball was great. He's not afraid to crash a pack. He could take a mark, but didn't quite get on the scoreboard maybe enough. It'll come. Hasn't even played 10 games. So, let's hope he leads our forward line with the recently re-signed Nick Larkey as well and takes us into the future. And it's an interesting point as well that so many players are re-signing after the mass exodus that I think Kane Cornes in particular was talking about, let alone the media landscape in general. This year, we've already had Miller Bergman, Nick Larkey, Josh Goda, Charlie Comben, George Wardlaw, and Harry Sheasel re-sign. All key pieces moving forward. Doesn't really seem like a mass exodus to me. Now, I'm no mass exodus expert. There we go. I'm no expert on that. But doesn't seem to me like people are running out the door. I'm confident everyone wants to stay here, except Ben McKay. My heart tells me he'll re-sign. My head tells me he'll go. Why wouldn't you test out free agency as well? I guess being a follower and a fan of other sports, it's pretty common to run down contracts. Obviously, NBA-wise, a lot of people run down their contract, test it out, and then will re-sign as well. Maybe that's the modern way moving forward. Just because he doesn't sign before the end of the season, I guess, doesn't mean that he is definitely going. If you're in that position, why wouldn't you test it out and see what people are going to offer you? So I'm hopeful Ben re-signs, and I think, especially Larkey and like Wardlaw and Sheasel re-signing, especially Larkey, I think. It's a big, hey, Ben, we want you here. Look who else is re-signing. Jai Simpkin was the other one. I completely forgot. Sorry, guys. Jai Simpkin re-signed as well. Jai and Nick Larkey being in their primes right now, I think is massive for getting Ben McKay to stay. So watch this space. Who knows what's going to happen? I didn't expect this Comben contract to happen, and all of a sudden I open my phone, I'm like, oh, he re-signed. Cool. So yeah, great stuff from North. They're doing a lot off the field right, and I hope they continue on with all that. So let's get into the game, and we're going to start with the lineup that was announced before the game. So in came Simpkin and Greenwood. Out goes Tucker, Bergman, and Hall. My thoughts on that, Simpkin and Greenwood, fantastic ins. Not an issue with that at all. Darcy Tucker going out was a very interesting one. I don't think he deserved to get dropped. I think he had 40 touches and 2 goals in the VFL on Sunday as well. So something tells me he is coming in next week. And Bergman, Bergman didn't have the best game the week before, but there's players playing a lot worse than him that are getting continued runs in this team. So I probably didn't agree with his dropping. He was made sub, which I thought, look, at least he's playing. Then I got to the ground, and somehow this skipped my mind. In the warm-ups, I saw number 4, the North Melbourne number 4, lining up in the back line, and I had no idea Aiden Corr was playing. I just kind of assumed he wouldn't get a game because he hasn't been good for a long time, and he was, and I was instantly nervous. So, look, this is a bit of banter. I'm not here to trash players, but look, I wasn't expecting Aiden Corr to maybe stay in the team. Phoenix Spicer is another one. We all want Phoenix Spicer to do so well, and it was nice he had 9 tackles a few weeks ago, but I think he got 2 touches and was subbed off, so I think Phoenix's run in this team is done now. And does Robert Hansen Jr. come in? Probably not. I think Paul Curtis had a better game, and Steve-O was great in this game. So they, to me, can play that small forward role. I'm not sure. I understand we don't have like a Charlie Cameron, an Eddie Betts type small forward, but do we absolutely need one? I think Curtis and Jaden Stevenson can offer similar things. So I think Spicer needs to go back to the VFL. Aaron Hall gets dropped. Yeah, fair enough. I honestly, and I know a lot of you guys aren't going to agree with this, but I mean, I think Spicer and Corr should have been dropped before Aaron Hall. Aaron Hall's bad is bad, but his good is good. And we don't have a player running off half back right now. Not that I really want him in the team. I mean, Josh Goda is probably the guy we want to see there long term, but I don't know. I don't know the different positions, but yeah, Spicer and Core probably get dropped over Aaron Hall for me, even though Aaron Hall's game last week wasn't great, but he always has flashes, which I don't know. We just don't have anyone else like that. But look, it is what it is. Other than that, the team was sort of similar, and we moved forward into the Bulldogs game. So my notes here, my positives and my negatives. Positives first, like always. A really strong start. We came out and the Bulldogs were pumping it into their forward line, and we were really resilient. We gave up like 6 points in the first quarter, but at the start, like I was sitting there and couldn't believe that they hadn't scored for like the first 10 minutes of the game with the amount of entries they had. So our defense was fairly resilient. Like always, our problem is like getting the ball forward and capitalizing. But I don't know. I think we did that okay at the start. We seemed to have obviously like younger, fresher legs, and we came out of the blocks pretty quick. And something we maybe have lacked against the Swans and the Bombers and the Pies and games like that. GWS, we came out pretty hot and then dipped off. And I guess we kind of did it in this game too. Maybe not as drastic, but yeah, we sort of started very strong and then obviously slightly fell away as the game went on. I thought our efficiency inside 50 was great in this game. We were sitting there with the North close to a flag admins, and I was like, I feel like every time we get it into our 50, we sort of score, but we just don't get it in there very much, and that's the issue, isn't it? But our efficiency inside 50 was great. We beat the Bulldogs on efficiency inside 50 for the game, but they had like 30 more inside 50s than us. I don't know if that's right, but that's off the top of my head. I feel like it was a crazy disparity. But yeah, I think, Larky and Stevo played pretty well. I thought Curtis, especially the first half, was active, and maybe Zurhaar in the second half was a little bit more active in that forward line. So our forward line functioned pretty well for me. Now, our efficiency inside 50 was good. When we get on top, we look good. Now, Rats did say this in the press conference. We're just not playing 4 quarters of footy. But slowly we're getting more and more consistent. And the times we're on top of teams, like we did against the Bombers for that patch, the Swans, and in this game here, we look really good. We chain handballs together. We move the ball quick. We're hitting targets inside 50 now. We're not bombing it long anymore, which is fantastic. Imagine if we could play like that 90% of the game and then be able to manage when we do drop off a little bit. That's what's given me hope for this team moving forward. I just think when we get on top of teams, and it doesn't matter who it is, because there was a couple of patches in the game where we got on top of the Pies too. We look very good moving forward, and I think that's because we do have genuine quality in this team. It's just so young. The consistency is not there. So that's what, personally for me, I'm really banking on. I think the Mackay and Logue partnership was really good in this game as well. Mackay's starting to use his body a little bit more in his size. Took a lot of intercept marks again. It's just classic Ben Mackay. And then Griffin Logue, maybe not marking everything like he was the last few weeks, but he's crashing packs. He always brings the ball to ground, rarely gets outmarked. I think there was maybe one I can remember where I thought maybe do a little bit better. But generally, he's very good. And I think their partnership going forward can be really, really strong. And our team looks better when we've got 2 talls down there instead of the 3. For me personally, because I think when we get the 3, we lack the run off half back and transition through the middle, which I think we struggled with in this game. But Logan Mackay as a partnership, I think it's really good, really solid, and getting better. It's good, could be great. They just need time. They don't really get in each other's way though, and I think that's a good thing because individually they can always bring the ball to ground or take an intercept. And I got a couple more points, but my point here is Mesut Zurhaar. Now, for those who don't know and aren't a fan of the great club Arsenal FC in the Premier League, Mesut Ozil was an assist machine back in the day. Now, one of the gripes I've had with Zurhaar in the last few weeks is that he hates passing and he loves just blazing away. Now, I'm sure Rats went to him and said, if you even attempt a shot on goal this week, mate, you're dropped, because he was doing his thing on half forward, breaking tackles, breaking the lines, and he was always looking to pass to one of his teammates. And it was brilliant. Yes, there was a fend off in like the forward pocket where he should have maybe had a shot, but the mentality is correct to pass the ball because a lot of the times he does miss those and he doesn't make the right decision. And yes, he's got to get better at knowing when to kick the goal and when to pass. But I really liked seeing his mentality go team first and start passing the ball. So Mesut Zurhaar is here. I think glove Zurhaar is a thing as well. I don't know if you guys know Hoodie Mello or Face Mask Kyrie, even though I hate Kyrie Irving. He's a bum of a player. Franchise killer. But yes, that can be a thing. Glove Bull is dominant Bull. If Bull has the glove on, he can stick it. Maybe he watched a few Travis Cloak highlights through the week. I don't know. Quinton Lynch, maybe. But no, Glove Bull, Mesut Zurhaar was fantastic. And I thought it's just a much better, mature display from him, passing the ball to his team. A couple of players to point out from this game. Zurhaar was one. We've already sort of talked about him. I liked his unselfishness. Did get on the end of a couple as well. Really quickly with Zurhaar, actually, he took some great pack marks in this one. There's the one that they shared where there was, what's that long hair guy? Aaron Norton went into defense. And he's just like, there's two guys about to sandwich him. He's clunked the mark and landed straight in his back. Everyone's on the ground. He's just got straight up and kicked the goal. And I think that's brilliant. He's such a tough player. He took another mark with someone backing back into him and he just didn't even flinch. He's got I saw a comment, someone saying he's got a lot of Glenn Archer vibes with that glove. And I loved that. Glenn Archer's my favorite player of all time. So don't start saying he's Archer-like because I'm going to get a bit excited. Some other players, Harry Sheasel. I think he's been a little bit quiet in the last few weeks. Doesn't mean that he's been bad, but, we're used to a 30-plus possession Sheasel game. And he was back to about 32 touches. And I just thought he was around the ball all the time. I think he's used it very, very well and was always an out for us when we were in congestion. So props to Shees for his game. I think arguably best on ground, but we'll talk about that with the Sean Atley Club Champ votes. Nick Larkey, quiet in the first half. I did say to the guys I was sitting with, Larkey needs to step up in the second half. One, because of, us trying to win the game, but much more importantly, to keep gaining the lead on Oscar Allen for my bet with my coworker. So second half, Larkey was great. He's always a target. He's not good at leading up on the wing and getting those marks. Like I want Coleman Jones to be there. Larkey needs to be full forward always. But yeah, doesn't need many possessions to have a big impact on the scoreboard. So another great Larkey game. Jaden Stevenson had a brilliant game. I think 3 goals. He's a good kick at goal, but his work rate up and down the ground, he was getting up to half back sometimes to go and get his own footy. This is something I haven't really noticed from him, maybe because it's a TV broadcast or whatnot, but I don't know, sitting in the ground and just seeing him pop up on the wing and sometimes at half back in the middle, his work rate is fantastic, and he got the reward for it on the scoreboard this game as well. So a brilliant Steve-O game. Bailey Scott also continues his great form. Maybe not quite as great as his last few weeks, but still one of our higher possession getters. He's always around these packs, and the dude runs all day. I love Bailey Scott. He's brilliant. I don't know where we'd be without him. He's such a key pillar to transition this ball from defense to attack for us. And I think him and Stevenson linked up on the wing a couple of times where Steve-O would get the ball around a pack, a couple of little overhead handballs, and Bailey Scott would be running past to receive and just drive us forward. So, yeah, he's so crucial to us. And lastly on the list, look, I think there was other decent players, but the last one to really stand out for me, Taron Thomas. Played off half back a lot in this game from what I could see. Maybe wasn't quite efficient enough, or maybe didn't get around it enough. Like, one of the problems I think with Taron playing that half-back role is when he does get dragged into the back 50, he's not the guy that's going to back into a pack and he's not going to spoil. He's going to get outmarked. But his quality coming off the half-back line through the midfield, linking up with a Bailey Scott and whatnot, is great. So I thought he had a really solid game. Admin 2 from Close to a Flag did say you need to put him in the middle. And as soon as they did in the last quarter, he wouldn't stop bragging the whole time about his call and his coaching ability. So, yeah, Taron really came into his own in the last. I think I'm on board with Taron being, in the midfield or forward. I don't think I want him in the back line just off that game. But, hey, maybe Brett Ratton knows more about coaching than me. So there's all my positives. We'll get into some negatives. The transition goals. We leak goals in transition. I think it comes with time and defensive structure, but we absolutely leak them. If we turn it over in the midfield or even turn it over on our half back line or on our half forward line, the Bulldogs just walked it back through the center of the ground and got it into their 50, so quickly. And it happened all day, and it's happened all year. That's our biggest problem at the moment for me, is going forward we look good, but our skills aren't quite good enough because of our age, and we're very, very leaky. So I'd love them to tighten that up. I'm sure they know, and they're trying their best, and it's got a lot better, but a midfield like the Bulldogs have with Libba, Treloar, Bont, those guys, McRae, those guys are going to transition it all day and just rip it out of packs. And that kind of goes on to another negative I've got. Our midfield was dominated. I don't think any of our midfielders were bad, like awful bad, but I just didn't see them doing heaps. I think Will Phillips was quieter. He had, what did he have, like 24 touches or something? And it was probably the quietest 24, that I've ever seen live. None of them were bad though. Do you know what I mean? It's just maybe going forward and getting us on the front foot, we didn't quite get it. Jai wasn't at his best, but he's his first week back. And I think the bye is something that's really needed for our team. So, look, we always get dominated by the Bulldogs. I wouldn't say they dominated us, but we were comprehensively beaten out of the middle, but better than years gone by. Wardlaw was quiet as well, which I didn't want to see. It was my first time going to see him live, and I wanted him to put on a good performance for me because he should have known I was in the crowd because I'm in love with him. So next time, George, please, for me. I've touched on this one a few times this year, just numbers around contests, but I think it is the Dogs midfield. The Bulldogs are the best handballing team in the league, and they've been that way for at least a decade. I've never seen a team be able to handball so accurately and so quickly. Our players would tackle them and they'd be getting spun around and they'll just release this handball directly to another guy. It's wild how good they are at that compared to us especially. So, yeah, the numbers they got around the contest to be able to escape wasn't great. And where are all our players? I think there's a lot of players hanging around. Say there's a contest on the wing right up against the boundary line. A lot of our guys will hang around the edge of the square or in the middle and not really picking anyone up. And look, once again, I'm no coach, I'm just a fan, but we play a lot of zone and maybe not quite enough man-on-man for me. And I'd like to go a little bit back towards the man-on-man stuff while trying to keep the zone ticking along as well. I'm not saying go completely man-on-man, but a nice balance of both at certain points would be great. McDonald marking Waitman. Waitman kicked 6'2" or something like that. I think we've seen that McDonald is not a tagger and is not the guy who is going to be able to tag. He's Toby Green efforts last week maybe weren't great. I don't think Luke McDonald needs to be dropped at all, and I know a few people have been saying that, but not for me. I just think he needs to be deployed a little bit differently. My only gripe with McDonald would be there's two things I think I would want him to do in a perfect world, which is, one, be that small tagger on a Cameron or a Toby Green or a Waitman, or if that's not working, be the guy off half back with that left foot who's able to transition us to the wing. The problem is he doesn't seem to be great at tagging, and he is very Zeeble-like when getting rid of the ball, where it's just like, let's send this ball as far as humanly possible. So I don't think McDonald needs to be dropped. I don't think he was bad on the day. I think Waitman just got on top of him, and it happens sometimes. But I would love to find a different position for Luke McDonald or a different role in that defense. So, yeah, I don't have more answers than that, but hey, just my thoughts. 12 to 20 marks inside 50. I think our forward line functioned very well, and we kicked most of those 12 inside 50s were mostly goals, I would assume. But, just allowing a team a disparity like that, 12 to 20 marks inside 50, is just giving the opposition too many chances. And we're really lucky the Bulldogs didn't capitalise. They were very inaccurate, and it could have been a lot worse. So that's something we need to tighten up. Kicking out of the back 50, did touch on this with McDonald, but we're just not very good at getting it out of our back 50 and transitioning the ball up the ground. We have it in patches. When we do, it looks amazing and elite. Really, it does. I think we're one of the more exciting transition teams, when we can do it. It's just so infrequent that the ball often comes back over our heads. So another thing to try and tighten up there. We're obviously trying the short little chip kicks, the possession game, and we chip it around the back line a little bit, but I don't know what we're trying to do. Like, we don't switch it heaps and then try and get the run out and overlap and, have an extra player on our opponents. But it always ends into a long kick up the line anyway, so I'm not sure what the goal is. But, hey, we've improved a lot, in the last 5-6 weeks. So I'm sure it'll click one day. And Goldie got beat. Goldstein got beat. He was great in the first quarter. He took 3 intercept marks to stop them from kicking goals and taking marks in their forward line. He did a few more throughout the game, but by the second half especially, Tim English was just running off him like it was nothing. He was a cone. He was a traffic cone today, Goldie. When he's got time to stand and jump at the ball, very, very good, but I think we saw Goldstein's age on Sunday, and Tim English taught him a lesson. So that is one thing I'd be concerned about going forward. Goldie's great. I love Goldstein. He's a brilliant ruckman and doesn't deserve to be dropped at all. But with a young, athletic ruckman like English, he was just running off him for fun and getting into space. So something to watch out for. And lastly, for the negatives, a couple of players. You already know who I'm going to say. Phoenix Spicer, it's probably time to go back to the twos. Just not contributing enough, and we can't have guys on the field getting 2 touches in a game. Aiden Core, he's just not it, is he? I was going to say I want him to do well, but I'm kind of past it at this point. His player type would be so handy to have, a third tall, be able to come in if anyone gets injured, or if they do have a tall forward line like the Dogs can have, that's a handy player to have. But he just doesn't crash packs. He doesn't take intercept marks. He's not quick. So I'm not sure what he really brings to the team. He must have some dirt on Rats or something like that, because, yeah, I guess I can see why he was in the team, with the Dogs forward line, but why maybe the only reason for me he wasn't subbed out is because Spicer was so bad. So, both of those guys, it's time to head back to the Magoos for you. Bergman was the other one. Now, he needs to keep getting a run. I think Bergman's done his time in this team and performed well enough to not be dropped because of one bad game. But he looked a little bit shaky when he came on. So hopefully a rest is good for him, and he can find that really good, efficient disposal form that he's shown most of the year. So no real worries about Bergman for me. Not his game. Last week wasn't amazing from him. But unlike a Lazaro or a Spicer or a Turner or a Howe, any of those guys, Bergman has shown enough and is at the right age to earn more of a chance compared to those guys, which I think we sort of know their level is a good VFL player at best. And, maybe that's harsh on Lazaro because he has been very, very good. But you know what I mean. It's more of a comparison for Bergman. So Miller Bergman stays in this team for me, but yeah, not the greatest couple of weeks. That's basically it for positives and negatives, guys. We've got a few questions that I'll touch on this game as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But just to the Sean Atley Club Champ votes now. It is getting tight at the top. Who am I going to give 3-2-1 to this week? Contenders for me, obviously, Larky, Shees, Stevo, Zurhaar, Scott, and Thomas. For me, Shees was getting the 3 this week. He's going to extend his lead at the top. Larky's been closing in on him, but I think Shees was our most consistent player all day. In a side where we were pretty flat through the middle, I think he was someone who was consistently trying to make things happen and a reliable outlet all around the ground. So I think Shees was probably our best on. Larky, I'm going to give the 2. Continues to kick goals. I think his on-field leadership is very good. He's not afraid to tell someone what's going on. My guy, Bailey Scott, had the ball on the left forward 50, right on the 50-metre line. Larky was free in the opposite pocket, and he just didn't kick it to him. He didn't look up quick enough, and Larky made sure to tell him. He's done it to Zurhaar the last few weeks. So, yeah, I think Larky consistently leads up, kicks goals. Yeah, we wouldn't be the team we are without him. So Larky gets the 2 for me. And I think Bailey Scott gets the 1. Zurhaar's stiff. I liked Zurhaar's game, but maybe didn't have... I think it's the consistency for Bailey Scott for me that's getting him the 1 vote today. So Bailey Scott and Shees were consistently getting us transition ball through the middle, and we were hitting up Larky, who was consistently converting. So I think these are our consistent players. Thomas, Zurhaar, and Stevo. Stiff not to get a vote, but I have to pick 3. I know I gave Thomas a sneaky 1 last week, but yeah, I think our team maybe wasn't quite as fiery as we've been in the weeks gone by. But hey, 3 to Sheasel, 2 to Larky, 1 to Scott. And I'll update you guys where the leaderboard is sitting in a few days' time. So let's jump into the listener questions, guys. And thank you once again for everyone writing in. Remember, Further North Podcast on Facebook and Further North Pod on Instagram. I love getting your thoughts and questions every week. So once again, I've asked you guys to ask me a question or put your thoughts into a question about the game, which I think is a much better format to go on. Because then we can actually have a little bit more of a discussion. I will just say quickly, next week, we're planning to get some guests on and do a little review pod and some fun ones about North as well. So once we get 2 or 3 people in here, your questions will come across even better. But it means, we can just have a little back and forward here, and I feel like I bounce things off you guys because I know you're listening. So let's jump into Facebook first. We've got Jazz Ruboy Chatsy. Needs a decent key back and need experience in midfield. I know they're young, couple of years on the right track we are building. That's very true. Do we need a key back? If Mackay goes, we absolutely do. But I'd like another key back that's not Core. I think we need a young, promising key defender. Core can hold down like a backup position if we absolutely need someone for the next couple of years while his contract runs out. But in that time, I would love to have another young key defender. I think it was #Kangaroos podcast I was listening to last week, and they were suggesting, what is his name? Jacob Edwards can be trialled in the back line because he's really not doing anything in the forward line in our 2s. So that would be a good trial. But look, as for the question, I don't think we need a key defender for our first team if Mackay stays. But if he goes, we absolutely do. If he does stay, I think we need a promising young defender if we draft them or get them from another team, someone who's not getting a shot, to challenge for that position, because I don't think Core's here long term unless he really picks up his game. We've got Michael Negri. Have you noticed that when Phillips plays well in the mids, we lift, and when he is shut down, we go quiet? He is the barometer. Oh, that's a great word. Not flashy or classy, but a true shin boner. Does the tough stuff. I agree, Michael. I agree. I think that's because he seems to be, especially without LDU in this team, or a Cunnington, to be honest, he's the best right now at picking that ball up off the ground and feeding it to Jai, to Wardlaw, to Sheasel, to Taran. That sort of stuff. Hugh Greenwood is very good at it as well, but I don't know. When he's on, he just gives us another way to pick that ball up off the ground, and he's got very, very clean hands. I think Hugh Greenwood's very, very good at getting the ball out of a pack, but maybe not as clean as Will Phillips is in his disposal. So that's why I think that is, and hopefully with time, he gets the consistency to play like he did maybe against Essendon or against Sydney every single week. So good on Will Phil for, finding his form. But if we could get that all the time, our midfield is scary. Marcus Gatt. Core is infuriating, and whilst he tries, Phoenix is always redundant during a contest. I think we are lacking a lot of run and carry, which is what will improve us from a young team giving it a go. What are some fixes long-term you think we should employ? Love your work. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it, mate. You're right. Core is infuriating, but he does. Yes, you're right. He does compete. He's just not good enough to impact the competition or the contest with his competitiveness. Phoenix is completely redundant in a contest, absolutely. So what can we do to improve this? Well, it is the run and carry thing, isn't it? Like, are we banking on Josh Goda to be that guy? We've got a Lockie Young in the twos who's playing okay but doesn't seem to be getting a game. Putting Taron, on half back doesn't seem like it wasn't great on the weekend. He was much better when he went into the midfield. And I guess putting Sheasel back there, he's clean in disposal, but he's not the one transitioning it. So, getting some more Bailey Scotts, getting some more wingers, I think, some wingers who can run all day. You know what? Someone like Aaron Hall who doesn't turn the ball over all the time, I think would solve that problem. Getting ourselves a Sard. I think Salem for the Ds plays that role too. Getting someone like that to be able to run off halfback while being clean in his disposal is the key to doing that. And I think that's the biggest thing maybe long-term to fix that problem. Once our midfield is better, getting the ball off halfback, they're basically midfielders. So once we can link up and transition better, I think that'll all come in time with experience. But getting a Sard or a Salem or someone like that type of player to run off half-back, and we hope Josh Goda could turn into that, is going to be that thing for me to fix long-term. But hey, we've already seen like Darcy Tucker doesn't provide much run, but it is a clean option off the back line. But you're right. We've got players who are clean off the back line like Sheasel or Tucker, but they don't offer the run. But then there's guys like Hall or Taron who have the run, but Hall's disposal isn't great, and Taron is much better in the midfield or in the forward line. So we need a combination. We need to smash Taron Thomas and Harry Sheasel together, and there's your player. There's your fix, Marcus. Jesse Stevenson. How good is it being competitive in games now? The bye will do the boys good. They need the rest. I think some selection pressure when we get some injured players back will help our second half of the year. I do agree with that. We're going to get injuries all the time, though. Like, LDU's been incredibly injury prone. I feel like he's played like 4 games this year. So that's a little worry for me. I mean, Jerry will come back. We're going to have a question about Jerry coming up. But competition for spots is great. Look what Eddie Ford's done to Curtis Taylor, and as an example. So, look what Wardlaw has done to Cunnington, or Phillips has done to Cunnington. They can't get back in the team. So that is a good thing. And I think the competitiveness for spots is going to make us better and our twos better, as we're seeing. Glenn Lavender says, the Thomas conundrum. Do we need to persevere with him off half back when LDU returns? With LDU, Jai, Greenwood, Wardlaw, Phillips and Powell in the middle, there is no need or space for him. With Sheasel, Zurhaar, Stevo, Curtis, Larkey, CCJ, Chom in the forward line, there is no need for him there, and the wings look solid. If the back line doesn't work out, what do we do with him? That's a great question. I would be putting him in the midfield over Powell. I really, really would. LDU, Jai, Greenwood, Wardlaw, Phillips, yeah. I'd probably be putting Thomas over Powell at the moment. Powell isn't setting the world on fire for me. He's solid enough. He'd kicked a couple of goals, I think, and they were in the last quarter, just sort of came out of nowhere. I think he got 12 touches for the game, but I think Powell is the one that I'd be more concerned about fitting in because Taron's been good in the middle. I think him sort of half forward but drifting to the wing or into the middle is going to be his spot. There's no conundrum for me if he plays every week. He absolutely does. But it is a good question. I think putting him in the middle or the half forward line, sort of that Eddie Ford role, but maybe on the other side where, when the ball's in our forward line, he plays deeper. But when the ball's in the middle or in our back line, he can push down to the wing or sort of slightly off half back and make a contest and use his cleanness with the footy there. So I think realistically a rotation between half forward and midfield for me, and definitely in the midfield over Powell. I'd be having a conversation about Powell more than Taryn, but that's my thoughts on that. Thank you for the question. That was a great question. Alex Nancaro says, are these honourable losses acceptable anymore? We've gotten so much better at sticking with our opponents, and that's huge progress. But when does it become not enough? Not expecting wins every week, but I think we need to start learning how to actually win games. I completely agree with this, Alex. Honestly, the only thing that ever divides our fan base at the moment, to me, talking to people and talking to all you guys, is some people are really happy with the performances and that's enough for them right now. But I'm on the other side of that. I think we've set our base, we've set our performance standard now. We need to start getting wins. And that's why the GWS game was so disappointing for me, because we've done the hard work, we've improved, we're playing as a team, we can see the game plan. Our young players are the ones doing it now, but we still aren't getting results. And I think it's a mentality thing. Think about the Larkies and the Zurhaars and those guys, Jai Simpkin, who got drafted, 5-6 years ago. Their whole career, team-wise, it's been a regression, and they don't know how to win yet. And I really, really, really do think that once we get a win, the wins will flow. It's just that confidence thing, and I really do think it's in their heads, and it's a mentality thing. As soon as Essendon started coming back a few weeks ago, you reckon in their heads they weren't like, here we go again? And I'm not blaming them for that, because that's just a normal human reaction. But a win will come. I don't know where it's going to come from, because even if we go in against Hawthorn, I wouldn't be confident that we'd win it. I'm confident every week we'll show up and we'll play good enough to be competitive, and that's a great step. But we've taken that step for me. It's time to take another one. But hey, I know that for some people is a thing and some people is not a thing. So maybe I'll get your views on that. Well, tell me what you guys think. If I remember to, I'll put a poll up about it. But yeah, great question. And I agree. I think it's time to start winning games. All right. Noah Wiggins. I want to know your honest thoughts. Every week we hear you read out our thoughts, but what are yours? Noah, thank you so much. You flipped the question on me. I appreciate it, man. What are my thoughts? I kind of think the last comment backs up my thoughts. I'm really happy with our competitiveness. I'm happy with how we're playing. I'm happy that all these kids have shown that we've got talent, and I'm happy that the Turners and the Howes and those guys who we know aren't going to make it. I'll put a Spicer and a Lazaro and guys like that into the team, into that list. I'm glad we've got the forwards and things like that coming through, and we're sticking with players and we're having players, take other players' spots. But yeah, echoing the last comment, my thoughts are we need to start winning games now. It's great to put in 5 or 6 weeks of really solid performances, but it's time for another step. And realistically, we won 2 in a row and have lost so many in a row. If those wins were more staggered, I think I'd feel like we're in a better position. But we've lost so many in a row. We've lost more than any other team in a row. So yeah, I think that's the thing for me is I love the effort and the competitiveness, but we need a win and we need it quick for me because I want to set high standards, and honourable losses aren't good enough for me anymore. Not that I'm going to be disappointed with those, but my expectation is the second half after the bye, we need to get at least 2 or 3 wins in the back half of the year to really show we've improved. Because if we get to the end of this season playing better but still 3 wins, I'm personally not thrilled by that. I know other fans differ, and we will debate this stuff next week when we get a couple of guests on, but they're my thoughts. Thank you, Noah. Graham King, Is second last the position we expected to be in this year? No, not for me. Sort of echoing it again. We need more wins. I think we should absolutely be finishing above Hawthorn. Maybe not on their form recently, but at the start of the year, them, I think we should have maybe been where a GWS is, maybe even above them. Maybe I'm too optimistic, and maybe I was at the start of the year for sure. But yeah, I think if we end with 2 or 3 wins and we're second last just because West Coast is so bad, it's not big enough of a jump for me. So to your question, Graham, no, I would say second last is not the position we expected to be in. And for people re-signing and free agency, it's important to get more wins and to move up. Even if it's just one spot further up the ladder, that helps us get interest from other people for me. So, yeah, there's my thoughts on that. All right, longer one here. Harley Harbour, thoughts on what we need after this game? I believe we have a strong spine. Logue, Mackay, Goldie, Jai, CCJ and Larkey are a great midfield. I think he means like midfield straight up the guts of the ground there. I think we need to recruit 1 or 2 zippy forwards, especially a pocket and one with good leg speed off the flank. We also need a lockdown backman on these opposing small forwards and some strong off the half back, or someone strong off the half back. Thoughts on our strategy and potential recruits from other clubs? I agree with the small forward thing. Look, Robert Hansen Jr. sounds great, but he's a mid-season draft pick and he's 18. So if we could recruit a small forward who's ready to go, look what Bobby Hill's doing at Collingwood. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And someone else to like compete for that role. I would love Robert Hansen to be that guy, but, I don't know if I trust much with North and their recruiting anymore. Sheasel and Wardlaw were great and, Bergman's turned out well. But anyway, look, that's maybe just some PTSD. The speed off the flank is absolutely one that we talked about before, the Salem and the Sard types. I think for me, a clean user off half-back is the most important thing for me to recruit, alongside another ruckman personally. I know that, once again, I said there's a Jerry question coming up, which we'll talk about, but I'd say for me, if I'm going to pick a couple of positions to recruit, we need a Salem or a Sard type off half-back, and we need a ruckman, an athletic, versatile ruckman with a big tank that can move around the ground. They would be the 2 things that I would, want the most. Glenn Lowe says, where to from here for Curtis Taylor? That's a great question. It's the 2s for Curtis Taylor. I mean, by all reports, he's not setting the world on fire down there, and that's good for the club. I mean, as much as I was a big Curtis Taylor supporter at the start of the year and I wanted him to do well, but this is one of the bigger improvements we've found this year is, those finding who has it and who doesn't. Eddie Ford has it. Curtis Taylor seemingly doesn't right now. Phoenix Spicer doesn't have it. Charlie Lazaro is a good example of this. He's too good for the VFL, but when he comes into the AFL system, he's not good enough, and that's just too bad. Would I love Lazaro to come in and be that guy off half-back or be able to come into the midfield? Yeah, but he's not. And if the only reason he can't perform in the AFL is because there's too many midfielders in his spot, then good, because we need depth. So for Curtis Taylor, it's time to show it, mate, or you won't be here in a few years. And I don't really know what he offers. I mean, he doesn't mark as well as Eddie Ford. He's not as quick, either. So he is sort of that jack of all trades, master of none player that wasn't competing very well and finding the scoreboard. I mean, he kicked a couple of goals, but he's not going to have a Jaden Stevenson type impact. Or another good example of this is Paul Curtis, where, yes, he can be down, but it takes Paul Curtis 4 or 5 touches to kick a couple of goals and have an impact. Look at the time he hit the ball through his legs to kick our first goal or second goal or whatever it was on the weekend. Like, he's got an ability on the ground that is the reason he stays in this team, just like Bergman. He might have a couple of down weeks, but at any second, he's going to have a blinder, and Curtis Taylor isn't that guy. So it's banished to the 2s for Curtis Taylor, but might win a VFL premiership this year. Who knows? Aidan Collar says, the buyers welcomed. We are definitely improving Which of the end of the ground needs more help? Up forward or down back? Keep up the great pods. Thank you, Aiden. For me, it's down back. I think our forward line functioned pretty well on the weekend, and Larkey and Stevenson, Zurhaar's, inconsistent, but, I think we're functioning pretty well up forward. We're not bombing that ball in as much. We're getting more marks inside 50 than we were. Maybe not against the Bulldogs, but just consistently we are. And CCJ's made an impact sort of since being able to push forward as well. So I think the back line for me, I think the McDonald role is one, like a tagger. And that was the other thing. I think it was Harley mentioned it before, which I should have said before. Jackson Archer is a player I'd love to be able to come in and try and be that lockdown small defender. And maybe you can push McDonald up the ground a little bit more because his kicking can break lines, but he's tucked into the back pocket so much he just needs to clear it so quickly. So, yeah, I think the back line for me, a clean user like a Sard or a Salem off halfback, like I've said, and a small lockdown defender like hopefully what Jackson Archer can be, would be my two. So I like the Logan Mackay partnership, but it's the smalls that concern me. So defense for me. Anthony Cullen, do we need to start looking at recruiting another Goldstein-type ruckman? One who, although might concede a few inches to these 6'9" or 10 blokes, but has the footy smarts and the tank that allows him to win the role across 4 quarters. How long can he keep playing at such an impressive high standard? I think Goldstein will get the rest of the year in the ruck. And I think I'd love to see him sign another deal and try and be the backup ruckman next year. I know that was the plan this year, so I'd like to see him try and do it again. Now, Tristan Xerri is one of the most confusing players for me personally. And the reason is, every year, everyone talks about him being the guy that has had the biggest preseason. He's going to come on, he's going to be a great ruckman. And I just haven't seen it. And I'm not sure where you guys who think that have seen that from, unless I've missed something. He's barely played in the preseasons. When he did, I didn't think he was a standout at all. And the times he's played at AFL level, all I remember is him injuring himself, dropping marks, like uncontested marks in the middle, and not being able to handball very well. I'm not sure if he's the guy going forward. If I'm wrong and you guys have some information that I don't, fantastic, because we've apparently got a fantastic, great ruckman. But I don't know. I don't see him as the guy who's going to run all day and be able to keep up with the Tim English if he plays on like a Blitzarves or something like that. So I think that's a position we absolutely need to fill. I don't trust Tristan Xerri to be that guy. Getting a DeConing from Carlton would be brilliant for me. That would be almost my number one target to go and give a deal to. I've always said as well, Radagalia from the Cats, he's playing in defence for some reason. I didn't mind him as a ruckman. He's athletic. He's always going to bring the ball to ground. He's okay skills-wise. Clearly he must be if he's playing in defence. They're two guys that I would much prefer to maybe go and throw some money at, other than, trusting in Tristan Xerri when Goldstein is basically on crutches. Goldstein's great and he continues to be good, but yeah, it's a conundrum for sure. That's just my thoughts there. And lastly, the Facebook question. We won't do it, but I'm going to read it out and just say Daniel Sunshine is asking me what our best 22 is going to be after the bye. And that's something we're going to cover on next week's podcast. So we'll get there. We'll get there, Daniel. Thank you for your question, though. We're going to switch across to Instagram quickly before we finish up. Riley_Masterson_14. Have we replaced Scott Thompson and Robbie Tarrant sufficiently? For where our team is at with the type of players we can attract, I think we have. I struggle to think we could get a better partnership than Ben Mackay and Griffin Logue. I know I've been harping on this through the podcast, but I would say so. I don't think our tall defenders are our issue. I think our small defenders are. So I think we have, but we are lower on the table compared to when those guys were playing, so we only have a certain amount of pull to get good defenders. But I rate the Mackay and Logue partnership, so I would say yes. Mark loves beer. Missed the game because my son was being born. I've just purchased his first membership. That's unreal. Congrats, Mark, on the son being born and another shin boner to add to the army. I'm sure he'll be down in Bay 29 soon enough as well. So congrats, my friend. Jordan Knight. Who gets dropped after the bye? Spicer and Powell. LDU to come back after the bye and Tucker in. I think for me, Core and Spicer definitely dropped. I would consider putting Tom Powell back in the twos. I haven't been thrilled with Tom Powell. I haven't been disappointed either. But, an LDU for Powell swap is probably the best option there. While, I guess Spicer goes out. Yeah, maybe Tom Powell stays in. I'd love to see a Cooper Harvey or Jackson Archer get a run. Goda's got to come back in as well. Competition for spots. Powell is having to play a bit of hybrid role of half back or half forward, which I don't think is his best spot. So someone's got to work it out, but it's surely not going to be me. Amar 16. Would you rather have a team full of Phoenix Spicers or a team full of Aiden Cores? Now, this is an interesting one. So Phoenix Spicer he might give you a highlight. He's quick, but he's the lightest AFL player of all time and really just goes missing. So you probably wouldn't be able to find him. Aiden Core hurts our team way more than Phoenix Spicer, but he at least competes. Amar, why would you ask me this? I can't answer that question. I would rather a team of Phoenix Spicers because I feel like Phoenix would at least be a fun guy in the locker room. But that's all I can give you on that one. That's, too much. Will_Wood. You would kick 6 on Core, Josh, but love the pod. And I did repost this one in the story. Will, I absolutely would kick 6, my friend. You're talking to the Tamar Cats under 16 leading goal kicker for the league back in the day as well. So I would touch up Aiden Core in the forward line for sure. He would not be able to hang with me. Tommy Harris 4 says, can North Melbourne put in Zurhaar's contract that he has to wear a glove? He looked elite. Absolutely. I wish I had that comment earlier. I could have gone down and chatted to Sonja or Jen about that, just a little clause in his contract. Maybe I could pay someone at the club to tip super glue into the glove and maybe permanently stick it to his hand. The close to a flag boys were speculating. I wonder if he's wearing it because he's, burnt his hand on the grill while doing some of Bull's cooking. So, but hey, he cooks at Marvel and outside of Marvel, so who knows? Harley Harbour, you've made it in twice, mate. You sneaky bugger on Instagram as well. Great progress. Was hoping we would snag a win for my birthday on Monday. Getting Lions 2018 vibes. Well, happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday. And Lions 2018 vibes. Look, we're only a couple of years away before we start to not be able to win at the MCG. Dylan Ho says, is it in our best interest to keep trying to win games? Would love to add Harley Reid. I think it is in our best interests. Harley Reid would be amazing, and I did say this a couple of weeks ago. North's in a pretty good position right now because I think our midfield is good enough talent-wise anyway without a Harley Reid. And I think if we get the second pick and West Coast take Harley Reid, then we can draft a key position player, which I think we need much more desperately. But if we somehow did get Harley Reid, we're getting the greatest player in the country, young player in the country anyway. But if I was going to pick, I think it's more important because our midfield is very strong to get wins and to attract free agents and to attract people to keep re-signing. If we win 2 games or 5 games, to me, that could be the difference between Ben Mackay signing. And Ben Mackay, as an example, is a much more important position to lock down for our team than getting another mid on top of LDU, Wardlaw, especially the 2, which I think could be Brownlow quality, and Simpkin and Sheasel and Taron Thomas and Hugh Greenwood and all those guys. So winning games is very important, especially for off the field. Brighton_Isles. What is it that North really need to work on most over the bye to improve? We did touch on this one before. It's not giving up quick goals in transition. You know, we'll grind out a game for 10 minutes, score a couple of goals, and then over the space of 3 to 5 minutes, give up like 3 easy transition goals. That's the biggest pet peeve of this team right now. And I think we would have won a couple of games if we couldn't leak goals so quickly. So that would be, for me, Brighton, the number one thing. So let's hope Rats gets in the lab and figures out a way to fix that one up. So lastly, guys, just a quick round review, and then I'm going to let you guys go, have the rest of your day, and I'm going to go eat some food and go to sleep. Port Adelaide, Geelong Cats. Yeah, Port looks very good, don't they? I hate it. You guys know I hate it. They just look really, really good, and clearly the second best team, and really the only team I think that challenges the Pies right now, you know, consistently, I guess. You know, the D's on their day, I think, can, and so can the Lions on their day, but their day doesn't come around anywhere near enough. So that's a big statement win from Port, and let's just hope they lose the grand final. Friday night, we had Brisbane and Sydney. Brisbane getting the job done. I watched a little bit of this game. It was a bit grubby at the start, but the Swans, I think, got out to a little bit of an early lead, but Brisbane sort of did what they had to do. People underrate Brisbane for me, and people are always harping on about they don't win at the G, and I did make a joke about that before, but they did beat the Ds at the G last year in the finals. So they absolutely can win in Melbourne, and we got to stop using that as an excuse when they broke that excuse last year. I think the Lions are underrated. If they were a Melbourne team, we'd be incredibly high on them. So yeah, they're bad, can be bad though, the Lions, but their good is more consistent and very good. The Giants have beaten Fremantle. Fremantle scored 36 points. Do we play Fremantle again? Geez, I hope so, because I reckon that's a winnable game, and it'd have to be in Melbourne too. We probably don't though. Yeah, the Giants, confusing. They're sort of in a league of their own. They're not sort of good enough to even be near, like, I don't know, like 10th or 11th or 12th or anything like that. I guess they're 11th right now. Yeah, maybe I'm underestimating. The Giants are only a few points. This is crazy, guys. The Giants are only a few points out of the finals. This is such a wild ladder because I genuinely think like 15th all the way up to 5th, I think there's 10 teams that could all make the finals. It's just a logjam in there. So the bottom 3 are clearly the bottom 3. The top 4 to me are clearly the top 4. And then everyone else is pretty even. Like Richmond were 14th or 15th a few weeks ago. Now they're 9th back in their old spot. So what a wild season. And Richmond did beat the Saints. I did predict that one. People are lower on Richmond than they should be. People are higher on the Saints than they should be. And that, yeah, was a fair enough result in the awful, awful wet game too. Carlton basically won the grand final on Sunday. How about the carry-on from the Blues fans? They're still awful, and they did beat the Suns, which is gross. But look, I got nothing against Carlton. Good on them. Finally, they won a game and could propel you up to 14th on the ladder, which would be very exciting. And that was basically it besides our game. Everyone else had buys. So we do have a bye next week. We are going to do a couple of podcasts. I'd like to do a podcast, basically like a mid-season review. And then I would also like to do one ranking North's worst ever Guernseys of all time. I don't know if it's going to be a tier list. I don't know if it's going to be like a college knockout bracket style, but I'm going to get that going for you guys. So hopefully a couple of fun ones to fill in no footy chat in the break. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. If you don't, please follow the socials. Lots of good content. Love your thoughts getting written in every week. Thank you so much. Kanga, Kanga, Kanga. Make sure you get down to Bay 29. All the information will be on my page and North Melbourne Closer to a Flag. There is a Bay 29 Instagram page as well. So have a look at that. Love you guys. Thank you for listening once again. Let's keep growing this community here. It's getting bigger and bigger, which I love. If you've got any North supporting mates that haven't listened yet, please get them onto it. And that's it. I'm done. I need to go eat some food. I'm getting hungry. See you guys. Kanga Kanga. Thanks for listening to the Further North podcast. We'll be back next week with more great North chat. See you then, Bruce fans.